Okay, hello, Raven. I assume you're from Georgia. I'm living in Portland, Oregon. I used to live in DC. Anyway, so RSpec, it's super confusing for everybody, including me, and it just changed. So I made this repo called Spike Skeleton, and you can get it just with git clone. So if you just go there, and then you probably already know this. So I'm sorry for explaining stuff you already know, but you just clone that repo with git into any directory you want. It's called Spike Skeleton. You go in there, and then you'll get what's listed here. And this is all about like trying out new stuff without fear. And I use it all the time because no matter how many years of experience you have, you're always afraid of failing. So, and failing is painful. So, um, basically, this is like the most stripped down like RSpec project, but it's still got some like nice things bolted onto it, like guard, but you don't need to use guard. So I thought I would explain like how RSpec works just with this like project layout. And there's nothing magical about this layout. It's just a bunch of files and folders, but it's already like created for you, so it will work like out of the box. So it's good to learn on. Okay, so first of all, when you're gonna want to do bundle on it, like the instructions say, you git clone it. Um, you don't have to give it a new name like my awesome spike. You can just keep it spike skeleton or whatever. So you run bundle, and then it's gonna install the gems that you're missing if you're missing any. Okay, so then you're good to go. So the next part, it says to run guard. Guard is just a thing that just auto runs RSpec for you. You don't need to do that. First, what you should do is do bundle exec RSpec. Okay, and that's just going to run the project as is, and this should work. But even though it fails, it's working. So I'm going to open this in Sublime, and let's look at the test, and then we'll step through how RSpec works and stuff. Okay, so it's failing on, it says does something I'm trying to learn about, which is this part, and it's pending. Expected pending to fail. Okay. Yeah, so in RSpec 3, like you have to explicitly, I think, fail tests now. So let's see if this works. And then I'll walk through like what this is actually executing. Okay, fail learning. Right. So this is like now I'm trying to learn how RSpec 3 works. Oh, actually, I know what it is. You have to do pending, and then fail pending. I think the new format. I'm just trying to get this yellow. Yeah. Okay. So that's, see, like even I forget. So like the old example had this just pending by itself, which you used to be able to do that in RSpec 2. Just say, okay, like I'm not ready for this test yet. I'm just gonna leave it as pending. But now you have to like do pending fail. Okay. So we're like way ahead of ourselves. Let's talk about RSpec command. So RSpec is a gem that gives you a binary, and so it just gives you a command. So when you did that bundle command earlier, bundle install, it installed the gems, and then that gave you this RSpec command. And the RSpec command can take many options and stuff. So, but if you just run it by itself, then RSpec execute it, like it knows, like RSpec knows to look for this spec folder. Okay. But it also, right before that, it looks for this RSpec dot file. A dot file is like a hidden file. So you can see like when I do ls, I don't see this file, but if I do ls.la, then that file is there. That's a hidden file. So like hidden files are there just to like stay out of your way. They do stuff, but you don't need to mess with them. So people will like hide stuff there. So they typically call it like dot files. You might know this. I'm sorry. I have like no context, so I have to explain everything. So um, there's some other option that's missing here. Um, Yeah, there's something. Oh, I know what it is. Yeah. Let's see. I was just working on this. Um, So like, yeah, require spec helper. That's what I'm missing. So like that's my fault for my repo is a little bit out of date, so I need to fix that. So um, it the dot file like by itself, when you fire up RSpec, it won't look for this spec helper, which is normally where you put um, like RSpec options and stuff. Like basically the spec helper is like the thing that always runs right before your test suite runs. So you can put like all kinds of stuff here. Like when you like start using another gem and like you need it to like automatically load, or you need it to like configure something like different gems have different things that are needed to be loaded, like network testing or fake things or something. Then you throw them in the spec helper. So all the spec helper is like a starting point. Like when RSpec loads up, a file will be requiring spec. You have to like require spec helper at the top. But I think in the new versions of RSpec, you can throw it in here so that you don't have to type this all the time. So like you want to put all the common stuff in spec helper, but that means that you have to do this. So let's just like watch this run. So I'm gonna take this out. Require. So let's see if I can remember this. So let's say I wanted to put like right here. I'm going to put something useful here that runs every time. And a good example of this is like webmock or like I don't know, some other gems. Like gems put stuff here, or gems readme tell you to put stuff here a lot of times. So when I run RSpec, I don't think that this is going to run. Yeah, it didn't. It didn't. It should have like appeared like up here, but it didn't. So if I put this thing back in there and just run RSpec again, yeah, I'm gonna put something useful here that runs every time. Right. So, so this is like a life cycle. Like when we talk about like how something runs, this is like life cycle. So the life cycle so far we found out is that when you run the RSpec command, it looks for an RSpec file first. That RSpec file, if you put this in here, which uh, by default you'll see it if you follow the RSpec instructions, like with the RSpec init, I think it'll create this RSpec file for you in your project. So it looks for that dot file, that magical hidden file, which includes this require spec helper line in it, which then will go and look for spec, a file called spec helper.rb for you automatically. And inside there, it's like whatever you put in there will run, right? So in this case, like all this is all like default RSpec stuff. You can see even like at the top of this file, it says this file was generated by RSpec init. So like I really didn't change anything. I just left this like default. All this part was just generated for me with the RSpec init command. So that's just out of the docs. So I'm gonna take this out. Okay. So then after, so that's just like how RSpec starts, but it hasn't like run your test yet. So you're probably wondering like when we get to the actually useful part. So after that, it's gonna like look for any files called underscore spike, I believe. So like when you run RSpec just by itself, then it's just gonna run your test suite, run your tests, and that's like basically just like star spec.rb, I think is how it works. And that will like also I think include if you had subdirectories. So if you had like um, some folder called thing, and then you had like underscore if you had like files underneath that folder, I think it would descend into those directories and do that too. I'm not sure. But yeah, basically the way I think of it is like when I run RSpec, it just runs the whole thing. If you want to like fine tune it, then you can pass RSpec a file. So you probably already know this. I'm just gonna write down this. Okay, so once it enters your file, um, it it like basically just runs this like Ruby code, just like normal Ruby code, except RSpec like knows like now you're in the RSpec world, so it automatically loads its DSL. So it knows what um, like the DSL includes a method called describe, and so like RSpec can like basically use this nice language for like describe and it and pending. Like you notice we didn't do like RSpec describe or something like that. It's just described by itself because this is within the context of the RSpec run, so to speak. Um, so like we could also do something like this. We could do RSpec spec, and this should run. But yeah, right. Okay. Writing tests using main style gets old. Right. Okay. Yeah. So basically at this point it runs your tests, which is um, whatever is inside of your file, and it just goes through in order um, to load the file. But then after that, it will run the tests randomly because we said here config order random, and you want that. You don't want to you just leave this alone. Like I never change this because this is a good thing. It's trying to help you. It's trying to service order dependencies, which is just another way of saying like if you depend on order, that's bad. Like your tests should not need to run in order. They should each of these its should like uh, be random. So or each of those its should stand by themselves. So if we have another test like it does something else. We'll just make a stupid test. Expect 1 to equal 1. Run RSpec again. You can run RSpec by itself, but to be safe, okay, that one passed. But to be safe, if you run into problems, you should put bundle exec in front of it, and that's because you want to load just the gems that your project uses. So whatever's in here will get loaded automatically. Okay, so um, let's see if maybe we can run this some more times and see if that runs in random order. Yeah, see before it was green on the bottom. So that's good. So like we want our test to like run randomly, like each of these its. So yeah, so this it is like not Ruby. It's RSpec, like it's RSpec language. So like if you try to do it in Ruby, it doesn't know what you mean. And you can also say specify. It's just an alias. So if you want to like write this part so it's like English like it does something I'm trying to do. But if you wanted to like specify that it's specify that the app is good or something, then you can do it in that style. I just try to make it read like a sentence, so it doesn't matter. Specify and it are basically or probably even alias to the same thing, so it doesn't matter. So basically, like what like within the it or within the specify, this is like your test, right? And the test, right before it runs, you get a chance to do some stuff right up here. So, like we're basically within this like foo class. So we could make this like maybe more interesting. Like, I know the RSpec docs have like a bowling example, I think. Oh no, maybe that's that might be another doc. Yeah, so they use bowling as an example. So, um, we could do this, I guess. So we're going to describe bowling. Okay. So they named their file bowling, so this is not going to pass. So this is just testing. If we want to do like TDD, what we would do is like we would write what we want first and then fix it. Um, this is actually named wrong. I guess we call it spec. So we call this bowling spec. And then you just you wait for okay, cannot list such file bowling. That's because we have a file called spike. So we're gonna rename this to bowling, and this is like the TDD loop where you're running one thing at a time, which is why it included guard in there, because like typing RSpec or hitting up arrow enter over and over again gets really old. It hurts your hands. Um, so that's why I included guard in this project, which it just runs all the time. So anytime I make a change, it's gonna run my test for me. But if you run guard -C, it will clear the screen for you every time, and it makes it easier to read. So I normally run it like that. So let's see what was the last test. Uninitialized constant bowling. Yeah, because our class is called foo. So I'm gonna clear out all this stuff. Okay. So undefined method hit for bowling. Man. To see if there's this getting this deprecation warning because my project is not up to date. Treat symbols as metadata. Treat symbols. Right. Okay, so hopefully that cleans it up. Okay, great. So I need to fix that in my spike skeleton repo because that has been deprecated since I've last updated the project. Okay, so we have no method called hit. So in our spec, we're doing this bowling new and then calling a hit method on bowling. But like the TDD like method or style would like I wouldn't even like go back to the spec and see what I want. I would just kind of like look at the test and see. So I could do this, and then it's gonna say wrong number of arguments. I'm just trying to like do the smallest amount of changes. So undefined method score. So we can add a score method. I'm just saving the file, and then it's running over here using the should. Right. So it's telling me that it's funny that their own docs are out of date. So this is RSpec 2 style. That's older, and they recently changed RSpec 3 style. Or RSpec 3 just came out, and that includes a new style. And all it does is it takes out the should and puts it on the beginning. Actually, I don't like it. I like the should way better. But so you would basically just flip it. You say expect bowling.score to equal 0. You don't need those parentheses either. Got nil. Great. Okay, so now we're actually getting we're getting closer now. Using should. That's so. I need to comment that out. Right. Okay. All right. So now that's like the end of the TDD loop, because basically like we just did the smallest number of changes, and it's running through this class, and the class isn't doing anything, and we finally get to a point where okay, we actually need to write some code that does something. So in this case, we're bowling 20 times and hitting 0 pens. So we could like keep faking this out where we could just return 0 and then that would pass, but that's a little too fake. So what we should do is like every time we get a number, we should like add it, add the number to a total score or something, right? So we could do that like this. We could say we need to initialize a score first. So we're going to say at score equals 0 just to start a new game. Score starts at 0, and then we can say score plus equals number. Right, and then we want our score to return score. So We could define score, or we could do the shorter way, which is attribute reader score, which will expose the score instance variable as a method. So hopefully this passes. Okay, great. So yeah. So this is like the basic, this is like the most stripped down, the smallest RSpec test, I guess you could say. What I try to do is like, because you're gonna have a lot of these tests, a lot of these its, I try to like leave a little bit of space and like, so that they're like, they kind of look like this. This is now we're into like style and stuff. Like the tests just start looking like this, and that I think looks better. But also within a test, I try to leave a space between the set. This is like setup. So I'm setting up the test, and then I'm testing the test here. So um, if I'm constantly like doing stuff, like if I've got like different tests, like if I say you get a strike, so returns 10 for like one strike or something. Right. So if one time if I hit 10 pens, then I expect bowling score to equal 10, I believe. I don't play bowling, so so that should pass, I think. We'll see. Yep. Okay. Right. This one's double. So it returns what do you add the previous score to 2 strikes, 2 times hit 10. So this will fail, I think, because we don't have the bowling rules in there. Yeah. So yeah, we'll just ignore that for now. All right, so you can see like we're setting up the stuff here, and then we're testing it with the expect. We're setting stuff up here, and then we're testing with the expect. So like RSpec has some stuff built in for like handling this, because this line is repeated. So there's 2 ways we could do this. One, first of all, you get a subject variable for free when it runs. So and the subject, you just get this subject variable, like RSpec just creates that for you automatically. And that subject is your whatever you're describing, which is that, and it just like tacks on a new. So basically it's the exact same as this line. So we don't need this anymore. Except this isn't going to work anymore. Now this is undefined, but we can just substitute subject for that new thing. So that gets rid of like a lot of duplicated stuff, right? And if you're trying to set up something else, like you want like a player name always to be there or something, you want some other variable that you're always testing, there's this area that you can put that in like right above all the its. You can say before each do something. You can set up whatever you want. So this is like the setup area within or section or something within this describe. But there's you can like nest these describes and stuff. But in this case, uh, the setup section before each of these its would be right here. So RSpec is like really flexible. So maybe it's confusing as to like maybe you're looking at an example and trying to figure out like where and why people are putting things in places. But basically, it's just RSpec just lets you like nest all these contexts so that when you run it, it actually is outputting the nesting here. So there's 2 tests with 2 its, and right before the 2 its, there's this before section that's within a describe, and you could nest these like you have a bunch of tests here, and then there's like some related tests with like similar things, like maybe it's about foot faults in bowling or something like that. You could combine all those foot faults within another context so that you don't have to keep setting up some kind of like setup or something. So RSpec is just it's all about nesting. And so when you nest your tests in the code, your output is nested too. So I'm poorly explaining this, but the tests here are not nested, just under a describe, but the before is like its scope or like where it's located. The before is related to this level of nesting. So you'd have to look at other more complicated examples for like how to nest. This is normally the way I do things unless it gets really crazy. I just do one describe and a few each, a few its, and then if there's something I need to set up, like let's say we wanted like name to equal Joan or something like that. That's gonna be the name of our bowler. Then if we put Joan here, or if we put name here, it should syntax error expected. Do name equals Joan. Oh, right. It doesn't like my ASCII art. Undefined method name. Interesting. Maybe. Oh, right. So, yeah. There's a different way to do that. So, it knows about instance variables. You can see I got Joan. So, there. So, just for that test, but it actually exists here too. I just didn't print it out. So you can do instance variables just like you would in Ruby here, but if you want like named variables, you could say name let name, and then you pass it a block, and you say, I think this is how you do it, and then I don't have to do this anymore. So this is another way to say like, let this thing equal whatever is in here, and like normally it wouldn't be strings. Normally it's gonna be like some kind of fake network connection or like a test record, or it's going to be something more complicated normally, like let player equals player new or some mock object or something. So it's not going to be just setting instance variable stuff. But the important thing is like to see that this let where it's located is within this describe. So like everybody underneath here gets this whatever's in this all this setup stuff. So that's kind of the nice part. I like a lot about RSpec and the other testing libraries. It's how it's structured out. It's kind of like nested, like I was drawing before. Okay, so hopefully that's useful. If it was like way off base, let me know. I can if we were sitting together, you'd be giving me body language cues and like talking to me, and it'd probably be way better. If you want to do like if you're on Google, we could do like a Google Hangout if you want. That'd probably be more interactive. So just let me know if this was not enough, if it was too much, or if it was way off base. But if you want a simple thing to play with, I use this spike skeleton. I really created this. Yeah, it doesn't know what that is. I created this spike skeleton for myself. It's not something that after some period of time you get over with. I mean, I create when I want to like learn something, like if I want to learn how to compute bowling, which apparently I don't know how to do right now, then I would start with my spike skeleton and like rename it to like you know bowling learning or something like that, and just like start playing like this with using RSpec, kind of like guiding me along. And the TD, this is just the testing mechanics and like how RSpec works. When you get to TDD, all TDD is writing the test first and then letting the test guide you. So it's more of a philosophy, and you can easily like learn that later just watching some videos. I think the syntax is really confusing, and to be honest, I don't get it right a lot of time. I keep a cheat sheet. I look at old projects. I totally cheat to just get my test suite up and running. Once you have your test suite up and running, once you get past the list, you can just copy your old examples, and you can use yourself as a guide, and it goes way faster, and it actually starts to turn fun. Okay, I'm sorry that was so long. I didn't have time to make it short, so